Hi, everyone. This is Colleen, and welcome to our brand new take with Michelle Petties. Michelle is a speaker. She is the author of the best-selling book, Leaving Large: The Stories of a Food Addict, and she is a food story finder. Michelle, the floor is all yours.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Colleen Meyer, producer and moderator extraordinaire. Thank you. I also want to thank our special guest tonight on a brand new take, Cyndal Wallace. She is an author. She is an author of the solution to emotional eating. We'll be talking to her in just a few minutes. We're going to go through a little housekeeping before we jump into a conversation that I'm so excited for us to have tonight. So we're doing our author section tonight. We're also doing our author section from the Cabby Closet. So we're happy to be here with Terry Riley, Cabby stylist extraordinaire. Because when you look good, when you feel good, you want to look good, right? That's right.
Yes.
When you feel good, you want to look good, and when you make smart choices, about what you eat, when you make choices about food that are rooted in truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rooted in truth, then you can feel good and you can feel in alignment. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more. First thing I want you to do is, if you have not downloaded your free chapter of my book, right? Because I'm an author too, Food Story Finder, Leaving Large: The Stories of a Food Addict. You can do that now. You can do that now at www.leavinglarge.com and find out that it is not about the food. It is about the story behind the food. And once you uncover and unpack your stories, you can find some freedom. You can find some freedom from eating for the wrong reasons. So download your free chapter right now. If you just kind of happened upon this us on YouTube, please subscribe now. Subscribe so you'll be able to get us every Sunday night. You'll be able to get us every Sunday night and find out what's going on a brand new take. If you are not a follower of I Am Brand New Now on Instagram, follow me on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram and see what happens when you get brand new. Right? You want to check that out, right? If you're not a member of our Facebook group, I Am Brand New Now on Facebook. We give you everyday tips. We provide a community of support because we cannot do this alone. This is not a journey. This is not a road that we want to that you have to travel by yourself. Somebody has walked before, and you can learn, and then once you learn, you can support others along the way. So now the housekeeping is out of the way. We're about to dive into what we do every Sunday night on a brand new take. Is we're talking about the truth. We're talking about the truth about why we eat what we eat. Because once we can raise our collective consciousness, right? Once we can raise our collective consciousness about eating for the right reasons, we'll all get healthier and we'll all feel better about ourselves. And with that, I want to introduce Cyndal Wallace, tonight's guest, and have her tell us all about her new book. Well, it's not new, but it's new to you because you haven't heard about it.
Oh, thank you so much, Michelle, again for having me on here. It's an absolute honor and pleasure. And this is a topic that I'm really passionate about talking about. Everyone emotionally eats to a point. We emotionally eat when we celebrate. We emotionally eat when we reward ourselves. But then also, too, we emotionally eat when we are not feeling the best, when we're feeling angry or sad or lonely or bored. And so I believe that when we can have this awareness, we're then able to understand, and we're able to overcome it and then heal it. And then therefore creating space between us and our actions. And I really loved what you said too about how the food is rooted in truth. And I agree with that so much. So thank you again for just having me on here and being able to share this perspective.
Oh man, I'm so, what I'm glad that you said is you talked about creating that space. And one of the things that I do with the people that I coach, and when we talk about emotional eating, and one of the things that I do myself, right? And it was a journey, being in this battle, with food, and it was a battle between mind, body, and hunger, for 40 years, right? Gaining and losing 700 pounds for real. But what I do is, before I put anything in my mouth, I ask myself 3 questions. And here are my questions. And anybody that's watching, you've likely heard them before, but I say it all the time because it bears repeating. Why this food now? Why this food now? That's the first question. The second question, am I hungry or something, or am I something else? Because I know from my own experience, I spent so many years eating for reasons other than hunger. I couldn't even recognize real hunger. Right? Who just walked in the room? Who just sent me an email? Who did I just get off the phone call with? What just happened? Was I hungry? Was I hungry 15 minutes ago? Right? So am I hungry or am I something else? And the third question is, if this food will not get me to the body that I say that I want, why am I eating it? And all what those questions do is that and I found this, and you can tell me if you see this or feel this at all, Cyndal, is that they allow us to break the pattern. They allow us to stop and assess, and it stops at just the automatic mindless eating that gets us in trouble, because we got to think. I call it T. We got to think, we got to evaluate, and we got to ask. Yeah. All before we eat.
I love it.
Yeah, we got to think before we eat, evaluate before we eat, and ask before we eat. And and once we raise awareness, that's the first step. Then you can make some smarter choices.
Definitely. And I completely agree with you 100%. And those three questions that you ask yourself and what you're teaching your clients and your listeners is to get that clarity, right? Because when we have that clarity, then we have this clear vision, and then we can go back to our truth and we can go back to our why. And I do something very similar. I actually teach all my clients the broccoli test. And so there's two rules with the broccoli test. Only eat when you're actually hungry and generate good feelings in the brain and the body. So when you find yourself going to the fridge, maybe after a long day of work, and you have the fridge open and you're scanning for minutes, and nothing really sounds good, taking that pause. Would I eat broccoli? Chances are, if you would eat broccoli, that means that you are actually hungry. Eat something that's going to make you feel good, something that's going to nourish your body and help you get closer to your goals. If you are not really in the mood to eating broccoli, that probably means that there is some kind of emotion that you're experiencing. And the thing about our brain is our brain will do everything it can to move us away from discomfort and towards pleasure.
Yes.
And if we are not consciously doing that, our brain's going to do it for us.
Yes.
And that ends up in the form of emotionally eating or drinking or smoking and all of those other too much behaviors. And so really tapping into what is going to light you up and what is going to bring joy into your everyday life, especially when you're faced with the moment before you might make that choice to eat something that you probably don't really want to.
Oh, I love the broccoli test. Yeah, Cyndal, I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it. But I actually use something similar, and I'm feeling better and better because I feel like we are like-minded on this. We're like-minded on this journey. Is that in fact, I actually have I have a session that I do around craving and binging, and the truth is, and the three of us sitting here know this, is that the only problem that food will solve is hunger. That is the only problem. And the only purpose of eating is to solve hunger. Right. And when I got real clear on that helped me make a huge shift to understand that food was not entertainment. That food eating was not an activity. It's just for nourishment and nutrition. But the way that I address cravings is similar to what you say. I say, if you are craving something, whatever it is, it's pizza, right, a brownie, cookie, chocolate chips, ice cream, whatever. If you are craving something, you hear all the time, just have a little bit of it, and it'll satisfy that craving. No. If you are craving something, then eat some broccoli, eat something nourishing. Eat a piece of chicken, eat a piece of fruit, get full so that you logically know that you are full. And since we already know that the only problem that food solves is hunger, if you logically know that you are full and you are still you are still craving the broccoli or the popcorn or the whatever it is, then you know that there is a story that food means something else to you. It represents an emotional place that needs some healing. So you need to sit and go back to, all right, what is this? What do I believe about this food? What emotion, what feeling is this food is bringing up with me, and deal with that, because it's not hunger. It's another story that's attached to it.
Definitely. I completely agree. And, something else too that I teach my clients is what I call the feel bad distract cycle. And the thing is that going to emotional wisdom is that a lot of us don't really know what our feelings are for, but we all experience them, right?
Right.
So I want to ask you, like, what do you think feelings are for?
Ooh,
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 yeah.
ooh, ooh. So
To put you on the spot, like, well,
yeah,
what do
yeah,
you think
yeah,
feelings
yeah.
are for?
Before I answer that question, I want to tell you the one thing I do know about feelings. I
Mhm.
know, I know that our feelings don't always tell us the truth.
Mm,
I know that our feelings sometimes are liars. It's a lie, and
yes.
that if it feels good, do it. That's not always the right thing to do. It's not always the right thing to do, and that you yeah, you gotta step back and look at and see where the feelings come from. You have to examine what the source of them, what the source of those feelings are, because they do not always tell you the truth, and they can get you into real trouble. And sometimes you have to sit with the feeling. You have to sit with the feeling and think about, all right, what's going to be the outcome. What is it that I really want? What am I really trying to get out of this situation? And leaning into the feeling isn't, no. I but to answer your question, what are they for? Well, I don't know.
And isn't it interesting that you've had these feelings for your entire life and not really knowing what they're for and don't feel bad? Because even when we ask like teachers and preachers and doctors and therapists and other coaches and ask them the same question, these people that work with mostly people and their emotions, they really don't know what it's there for. So I'm here to share a message that all feelings are good, even the bad feelings, such as
Yeah.
guilt and inadequacy and boredom and stress and anger and so on and so forth, because those feelings are there to motivate you to take action, to satisfy a need, want, or a desire. But what
Ooh.
happens though is that we don't know what those feelings are trying to motivate us to do. So, an analogy I like to use is like if you're driving your car and then the gas light turns on, what do you go do? Put gas in it, right?
Right.
Or if the oil light turns on, what do you go do? You put oil in it, or you hire someone to do it for you, right?
Right.
But
Right.
what if you're driving in this car and these lights are turning on and you don't know what they mean? It's hard to know what kind of action to take.
Mm,
And so our feelings are like this foreign language that is trying to get our attention, but then we feel bad and we don't know what to do with the feeling. So our brain is going to may help us feel better by distracting ourselves, such as eating. And so then we feel this uncomfortable feeling because we don't know what kind of action to take. And then we go reach for the food, for the drink, for the cigarettes, or whatever. And then we feel good for a little bit. But then what happens
mm,
is that feeling that eating that food was not a satisfying action to the feeling. It was
yeah.
only a temporary distraction. And then oftentimes that action, such as eating the food, has something that I like to call guilty residue. So now you even feel a little bit worse. So now you have that primary uncomfortable feeling now compounded with that guilty residue.
Yes.
And then you feel
Yes.
bad again, right? And then
Yes.
you're kind of like stuck in this rut. Then eventually what
Mhm.
happens is that feel bad feeling now gets compounded by frustration
Yes.
because what I'm doing is not working. I'm just spinning my wheels, getting deeper and deeper into that rut. And really, frustration, it's important to understand that frustration is a secondary emotion, that we're going to have a primary feeling, again, such as boredom and stress, inadequacy, anger, guilt. And then the frustration is a secondary emotion. Frustration is there to motivate us to a call for creativity. It's time to do something different because what we've been doing has not been working,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And so then if we keep missing those signals and we keep doing the same thing that we've been doing that has not been working, eventually we get to this place of depression Now, when I talk about depression, I want to I just mention that I'm not talking about chemical imbalance. I'm talking about normal, natural, healthy depression that we all humans experience at some point in their life. And even if we look at the word depressed and we break it apart, depressed, depression is there to motivate us to take a break, to get some rest, regain our energy, and then come back to the drawing board. What can I do differently?
Mm-hmm.
And so when we can understand the feel bad distract cycle and understand that these feelings that are driving us to emotionally eat, that's really not what our brain wants. Our
Mm-hmm.
brain just wants to feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And when we can take a satisfying action that is in alignment with the primary bad feeling, that is truly what your brain wants.
Mm-hmm.
It wants that satisfying action. It doesn't want the food. But
Right.
that is just how we've been trained and conditioned
Mm-hmm.
since kids. We fall and we fall and we skin our knee. Oh, here, honey, take a lollipop.
Right.
Distract ourselves,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Or we have
Yes.
our first heartbreak. Oh, here, honey, have some chocolate ice cream. Chocolate ice
Yes.
cream always fixes a broken heart,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So
And
we're trained this way.
yeah, and it's I don't know if you had a chance to just even check out a part of my book, but I'm going to assume that you have not. but the very first story that's in my book, and I'll do a short version of it, and this is what made the breakthrough for me, is that my uncle, who was 80 years old at the time, told me the story about how he got a severe whipping when he was a little kid for stealing a watermelon. And at the end of the story, I was still struggling my way, but I didn't make the connection. And at the end of the story, I said to him, "Well, Billy, do you think maybe the lesson was supposed to be thou shalt not steal?" And he said, "I don't eat watermelon." And so from the time that he was 5 or 6, 7 years old to the time he died, he never had it again because he made that connection. And when I started writing, and that story was the catalyst for me to start writing the book, because I just went through my old stories of how I made these different connections with food. And I said, my gosh, is it if he made this connection and never ate this food because of that negative connection, my cravings were all rooted in the fact that I connected certain feelings to certain foods. And I think what I want was the food, and what I really wanted was the feeling that the food represented. And so that's what my book is about, the stories where I go back and unpack all of that. And that's really what I hear you saying there, is that what you really want is for mama to kiss your knee, right? Kiss your knee and make it feel better, and love on you and make you feel better from that, right? To give you some little special attention because you had this slip and fall. You don't really want you don't really want ice cream, right? Right. But if that's what you get, you start thinking that that's what you really want.
Yeah. And also too, like our parents, they just want to help us feel better, right? And so like, oh no, our child is crying. Like, what do I do about it? Here, I'm gonna do how I've been taught, and I'm gonna give you some food
Yeah.
as a distractor because I feel uncomfortable,
Right.
instead of being able to sit with it. And that's also really interesting. You said that was with your uncle.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm also a master hypnotherapist.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do hypnosis with clients, and oftentimes we find very similar situations, such as what your uncle went through, and where people start to develop these poor relationships with food because of an experience that happened sometime before the age of 10.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an unconscious program that's playing out. And sometimes they are conscious about it, but a lot of times this is unconscious program that's playing out. It's like, if I eat watermelon, I'm going to get in trouble,
Right. Right.
and
Yes.
we don't want to be in trouble. So then we're going to avoid it.
Exactly. And and that's what you just described is what I call in my book is that we all have these food stories. We all have these food stories, and they can be unconscious, they can be subconscious, and they can be conscious. But they're the stories that drive how we interact with food. It's what we believe about the food, it's what we think about the food, it's what we attach to the food that determines how we interact with it. And the common one that I use all the time and I hear all the time is clean your plate. Right?
Oh my
We
goodness.
we don't waste food, right? Food costs money. People work too hard, and so you go out to eat. You go out to eat, and you go someplace, and they serve you these giant portions,
Yeah.
and you feel like you need to. You feel like you need to come. You feel like you need to eat it all because everybody grew up with you better clean your plate, right? Or
Oh.
Guilt.
Yeah.
right. As opposed
Food
to
guilt.
and you ignore what your body is saying. Your body is saying that you're full, but you still are driven to eat everything that you see because or
You don't want to get in trouble.
you don't want to
If
or
you don't eat all
it's
your food.
free or it's free. I mean, like in college, you're like, oh my God, they're having free food. Yeah, we feel like we need to eat it
Because it was free. Yeah.
because it's free. But we have to recognize, and what you're talking about is making that space so we can recognize these unconscious tapes, as these unconscious beliefs that we have about food, so we can make some different choices and we can rewrite them. It's what I talk about. We can rewrite the story that we have about food. We can be very intentional. We can be intentional about that and get some freedom around food
And break the cycle because it keeps going.
and break the cycle. And break the cycle.
100%. And also in my book, I talk quite a bit about food guilt and how food guilt is a learned behavior. And like we are not born with guilt. That's why two people can do the exact same thing. One person doesn't feel guilty, but the other one does, right? Because it's a learned behavior based on the people that we were around when we were children, how we were raised, and basically our environment. And so like when we're kids, we go sit down at the table and then we don't want to finish the food, but then we get guilted into it. Make sure you eat everything on your plate because there's starving kids in a different country.
Right.
Or if you don't eat everything on your plate, then you're not going to get dessert, right? And so now there is some kind of consequence.
Or you're going to be punished. You're going to have to go to your room or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my clients, what we discovered when she was about 5 years old, she her parents made her eat everything on her plate. She didn't want to, and she spent the night there. She was not allowed to leave the table until everything was cleared off of her plate.
Wow.
And that was the beginning of having this really bad yo-yo relationship with food. And being able to understand that even though that was a very valid experience that happened at that time, we don't have to let that keep playing in the background now.
Right.
We can heal it, we can overcome it, and know that in this space right now as an adult, you are safe to make this choice and you don't have to be part of the empty plates club anymore, right? Yeah.
It is so interesting. It was interesting for me, when I was writing the book too, and even talking to clients now to hear what people's stories are and what how people manage food. And oftentimes, like I'll like go to a dinner party and it'll come out, oh, you wrote this book. And people want to talk about it. And I want to talk. Of course, I want to talk about it. And they'll ask me about a food. They'll say, well, what is a food story? And I'll say, all right, here. How about this? We have a bowl of rice. When you see a bowl of rice, what do you think? What comes up for you? And we'll go around the room and everybody has a different idea or a different story about rice. Some people eat it at every meal. Some people eat it with salt. Some people eat it with gravy. Some people eat it with sugar. Some people don't eat it eat it at all. I mean, they all have this different thing, and it is their story about it. But it is this one thing. It is just rice. And in some cultures, if you go and you eat all the food, the people are offended because they think you only came there to eat. In some cultures, if you go and you don't ask for seconds, people are offended because like, well, what's wrong with the food? You didn't like it? I mean, it's like an insult. Please, if you don't ask for seconds, the people's feelings are hurt. But it's still the same thing. So we have to look at the meaning that we attach to food, and we are bombarded, I think, with so many messages about what food is beyond nutrition and nourishment for energy. We hear that it's culture, right? We hear that it's culture, like you said, it's reward. We use it for celebrate. It's a tied to so many things that people get confused. And once we just get real clear that it's just nutrition and nourishment, and we can get reward, we can get punishment, we can get culture, we can get entertainment, we can get pleasure, we can get activity, we can get friendship,
Yeah.
we get that from people. We can get that from other places, and not from a bowl of rice.
Right. Well, and that's even piggybacking off that is truly going to satisfy that need, want, or desire, right? Because that food is not going to do it for you.
Right.
And knowing that those feelings that we all experience, like loneliness, is there to motivate us to make meaningful connections and relationships. Anger is there for us to make the situation fair, to forgive. Guilt is there for us to make it fair because we've done something wrong to someone else, and to make it more fair. So all of these emotions are there to motivate us, and those are going to be truly the things that are going to be satisfying. And no amount of food, drink, or whatever it may be is truly going to be satisfying and resolve those problems. So I definitely agree with everything that you're saying, 110%.
I love that. Emotions are there to motivate us. Emotions are there to motivate us to get to what we really need, to get to what we really want. And I don't know about you, Cyndal, but one of the things that came up for me on this journey is that people say relationship with food all the time. And I have just intentionally and consciously stopped saying that. I say we manage food. We manage food, and we have relationships with people. And when we stop giving food these superpowers, these qualities that we should look for in people, it starts us to make a shift about how we think about it. And we stop looking for food for a relationship, and looking for it in people. And that really is part of where we are. But we're getting our time. I feel like I could just talk to you for more and more and more and more. And
I know 30 minutes goes by so quick.
It has gone by so quick. And I want you to come back. But what I do want you to do is I want you to tell anybody who's watching how to get in touch with you, your website, your book, any final words that you have. I just want to make sure that we give everybody the information that they need to be surrounded to be successful on their journey.
Thank you. So I'm actually on a mission. I want to gift away 33 books by my 33rd birthday, which is on March 23rd. So that's just here in a couple of weeks. And so if anyone would like to get a free copy of my book, I would be more than happy to send that to you. Please send me an email at wellness@bloominglotushypnosis.com. You can also go visit my website as well too, bloominglotushypnosis.com. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. And, and I also want to mention too that you don't have to go through this experience alone. A lot of people really, when they are experiencing emotionally eating, there's so much shame and guilt tied to it, and that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and there is a way to get through this. And, even if you're not reaching out to a coach or a therapist, reaching out to a family member or friend, because no one should have to go through this experience by themselves. And I am always happy and willing to chat with anyone that would like to chat. But thank you, Michelle, for having me on here today. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you.
Cyndal, I'm so glad that you were on. I am loving your message. I'm loving your message. And please, everybody, you got Cyndal's information. Reach out to her, and we will support you on this journey. And we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.